Alright everybody, it's DJ. Today I want to tell you about the reality behind manifestation and the truth about what Neville Goddard really taught. Neville Goddard never taught what the coaches in the space are discussing. That's just a fact, right? Neville Goddard actually taught that we have fixed functions, fixed trajectories in various parts of our lives that happen to us from processes that we need to go through to expand ourselves. Because remember, the point of our existence, the whole doctrine of what Neville Goddard was really teaching us, is that manifesting is to cushion the blows of life while we go through expansion processes and basically become more conscious of who we really are, right? That's really what manifestation as it's taught really is about. That's the fact. So most of this is about getting real with ourselves. How do we actually feel about things? That's what matters the most, right? Getting real with how we feel and involving ourselves in fulfilling what those conditions mean that we cannot involve in, that is satisfying to us, is the foundation of how you manifest what you want, because that's how you change your state, and your state is your degree of self-love. Now, Neville Goddard in his lectures discussed states and also seeds to be like eggs. What does this mean? Well, eggs obviously contain all of the genetic material to grow into a chicken, right? That's what eggs are. They contain information, just like a seed. A seed grows once it's planted and watered. But this is the thing. Neville Goddard in one of his lectures actually said that the reason why he does the whole imaginal scene thing at night is because it then feeds his thoughts during the next day to make persistence work for him. That's what he said. I can quote that from a lecture. I don't have it top of my head, but it's there, right? Another piece of the puzzle is very simple. Neville Goddard said it only takes 10 to 15 seconds to seal a state. What does that mean? It takes seconds to feel the feeling of something being real for you, to react. What did Neville Goddard say puts you in a state? What did he say the feeling is about? The feeling is the acceptance of the wish fulfilled. That's what he quoted it as. But he also discussed the feeling to be a sense of, I'm in this, I'm in the end. But he also said in another lecture that you don't need to be in it. And then he gave an example in another lecture, if you go through all these lectures you'll put this together, about this poor boy who went to a bank and he was thinking to himself, wouldn't it be wonderful if the bank teller or whoever the heck made a mistake and I got free money, something along those lines, right? And guess what? The bank teller made a mistake. This guy walked to the bank with his eyes open and simply said one affirmation, and 3 days later he got free money, right? He never did a sad scene in his head. He simply stated what he wanted as a suggestion, as though it was a matter of fact. This is what I want to have happen. Wouldn't it be wonderful if this happened? He never said it's happening now. He never approached it from a first-person present tense experience. He just felt that this was his experience that was going to show up, right? And that's the point. It's not about feeling high, not about feeling emotionally juiced up. It's just fact, right? This is comfortable for me to experience. I'm stating something as though it's real. So, as we can clearly tell, feeling the feeling of the wish fulfilled is really not about feeling emotionally high at all. Nor is it about vivid imaginal sensory detail, because he did not imagine with vivid sensory detail in that place while he was at the bank. He didn't close his eyes and imagine. He probably didn't even do gazing. I don't know what he did, but all Goddard told us is that he said, wouldn't it be wonderful, or isn't it wonderful that this would happen? Something along those lines, right? That's all he did. He said one affirmation and let it go and moved on. And this is my point. We're being told that we have to continue to persist, keep trying to ram thoughts in our heads, keep imagining at night, keep persisting. What is persistence about? What does persistence really mean? I'll get to what all of this connects to in a second. Persistence, for the most part, is about continuing to return to something being real for you and moving the energy, moving the current, moving the sensation of comfort for it until it feels natural towards you. And naturalness is, for the most part, a sense of affinity for this thing where it comes through you naturally. And this is where we get into the big picture, right? What is manifesting? What is actually moving the current? What is involved in making manifestation show up for you? Well, I'll tell you very simply. Manifestation happens through you being real to who you are. And who you are is who God is playing your role as. Neville Goddard said that politicians in his time knowingly, willingly lie to people. He said that that is the role they play. He cast a judgment on them in a negative way and said they willingly, knowingly lie. Right? That's what he said. Oh, he was negative. No, he was just stating a fact. He also said, if you've been paying attention to my shorts, in one of his lectures, I think it was called The Solar from 1965. I got the reference on there to prove that one. He actually said in that lecture that your birth conditions and, most importantly, the way that you're going to die is predetermined. He said it's predetermined. That's exactly what he said. He said it's predetermined, and that's what the Bible teaches. This is what the Bible teaches. That's what he said. He said it's predetermined by the play, which is the processing of current of God. Because we are all God playing the role. Only God acts, obviously. And of course, again, going back to the part of what we were discussing in the beginning, the whole point of this is just expand ourselves. He also said in another lecture, Consigned to Disobedience, I believe, from 1971, he said, we will all go through hell to learn certain lessons. What are these so-called lessons? He said in another lecture, I can't remember which one it was, but I know that it's there and I quoted it on my channel. He actually said the same type of thing about 3 or 4 times at least that I found in his lecture so far. And he said that the role of God will zap a rich man to the role of a shoeshine boy and a toilet scrubber for the work yet to be done in him. He talked about all these things as though we are being pulled like puppet strings. He called people mechanized dolls. He also called us slaves. He called people slaves. He's called us all of these different things to God. Like, do we understand it? There's more than enough evidence, more than enough quotes within Neville Goddard's doctrine to support this view of how he taught things. And again, remember, the main reason why he said that manifestation is even a thing, that we can get all these things in the world, is to cushion the blows of the world while we do the expansion work. And he said, you will contemplate a far more noble state. After he talked about getting the money and the cars and the SPs and blah, 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 blah. He literally said in that lecture, talking about, oh, I could tell you how to manifest all these things, but one day you'll contemplate a far more noble state. Far more noble state. What does all of this point to? It points to the underlying function of what all of this is about, what the biblical doctrine is about. It's about expansion of who we are. Right? Expansion of who we really are. Refining our sense of self. Concept of self, as he called it. Right? This is what he really taught. He did not teach us to get things in the world. He was discussing the law as a function of that, but the promise is the real function that we're involved with here, right? Now he discussed as well, and I know a lot of you are going to trying to, explain why I'm wrong in the comments. I know you're out there, you guys who support solipsistic mentalism trash, who can't be, proven correct, because God had literally told us that God predetermines our birth and our death. He said that directly. I put that in my last short. So go and refute what he said. You're contradicting what you say by ignoring that evidence, right? It's clearly there. He said that it's predetermined and this is what the Bible teaches. It's right there in front of your face. And yet you still keep thinking that we can determine everything in our lives by what we think. No, not everything in our mind is because of what we think. It can't be. And God has literally admitted that. He said that. He literally said that it's predetermined. We have no control over it. That's what he said. So once again, why do we keep thinking that everything in our mind is all that matters? Everything that we think is all that matters. And God had said, oh, the world around you is the sum total of all of the beliefs that you hold to be true. Right? So what is all of this doing? What is all of the sat stuff, the persistence of, imagining stuff, what is this really doing? It's moving current, moving nourishing current, vital current. This is another piece of the puzzle that I want to discuss with you guys, okay? Biological adaptation proves manifestation to be correct. Now, from one side, you could say, no, it doesn't, but actually it does, and I'll tell you why. Whoever you see yourself as, the garment, the body, it must adapt to that. Whoever you see yourself as, it will change to conform to. We know this because basically everybody that physically pushes their limits will grow. This is well known, it's well documented. Also, people who physically involve themselves in activity that's nourishing to them and satisfying will mentally feel better. Everybody knows this, it's common sense. Your state as in how you see the world, your attitude of mind. That's what God also defines states as. And I'll get back to the states and the seeds and the eggs thing in a second. Just hold on, I'm putting this together. He discussed that your state is your attitude of mind. So if you're involved in the life that you want to live and you're making satisfying decisions, of course you're going to feel better about yourself. Of course you're going to see yourself in a higher state because you're respecting yourself. You're moving your energy in a way that's functional. It's going to move in a way that's actually going to provide satisfaction, right? It has to. So therefore, there are many ways other than just thinking of what we want that can influence our world, influence our state. Because God had said that our states basically are what manifest. Now he also, remember, he likened seeds akin to states. He both called them eggs. He both called them the feminine aspect. Remember that. Now, interestingly enough, he also called imagination the feminine and also the masculine aspect of our psyche. So, of course, he understood yin and yang dynamics. Notice here a trend. There's metaphysical principles involved. It's not just mentalism in a vacuum where you create everything in a vacuum, you create all of the things. No, you don't. You don't create everything. You didn't create the world. Goddard said you didn't create the world. The world was already here. That's what he was talking about. There's other worlds, right? But there are other... When he's talking about other worlds, he's talking about depths of consciousness. Because if you do enough gazing, you're going to see these other worlds right here as you are now. But they're going to be overlaid over the top of where you are, right? The other worlds are not literally other dimensions or anything like that. They're just more of an expanse of how much you're aware of, right? The more aware of God you are, the more aware of totality of all of existence, basically, that you are, right? Also, keep in mind that Neville Goddard basically saw individual people as brain cells in the brain of God. How does that work? Well, every brain cell connects to other brain cells. How do we move other people? How do we manifest other people? Well, they're connected to us through the brain, the neural wiring of the structure of the etheric substrate of reality, which is the body of God or the brain of God. So, let's akin this now to what we said before in the beginning. States, seeds. You akin them to be the same thing, the feminine aspect, right? Seeds hold the genetic capacity for growth. We all know this. Everybody knows this, right? Seeds and eggs are basically the same thing. And he likened manifesting as I'm feeling into the state to be a psychic sexual act, which is where the masculine principle of the mind, the focused attention, penetrates the state and lives in the state, right? So when he talks about stabilizing a state, it's you returning and making a habit of living in the state. Therefore, you're impregnating and it will unfold. That's what he was basically discussing about the whole psychic sexual alchemy stuff. It's there. He taught this stuff, right? It's there in his lectures, it's there in his books even, right? So seed time, and he's mentioned this many times. I've studied every single instance of when he mentioned seed time. Seed time in his lectures are moments of a reaction to something being true, positive or negative, right? Doesn't really matter, but it's a reaction to the world. It's a motor response. He said this, right? I can quote him saying it's a motor response. Therefore, we understand what a reaction is meaning. It's a motor response, an inner level response. What is that? It's a movement of current. It's a movement of thematic current. It's a movement of God. He said it's all a movement of mind, a movement of God's mind. Do you understand? So a movement of the etheric substrate, which is the body of God, which contains all of the neurological so-called, connections between us and everyone else who's playing different roles, and how we change, we then spill over into the other neurons, right? Within the brain of God. They all interact. They all play their own roles. They all interact. They all do their interactions, and they all play out, and it unfolds the play of life through those interactions, through those connections, which is like pathway cascades. It's the same ideology, right? So, if a state that we're living in, that we're embodied, that we're stabilizing, that we return to and is our dominant state where we dwell. So if a dominant state where we dwell is what we manifest from, as Goddard has said many times, which he also once again akin to seeds, then that means that all of our responses stem from a single point of seed time. He called a seed time a reaction. A reaction contains within it all of the elements to unfold the behaviors that we have. Therefore, the actions that we take come from this behavioral, core, this seed, this state. So this is what he discussed about what states really are. States are, I believe this to be true, and the consequence, the implication of that branches out into all these other things, and that overlaps in other people's realities. If you watch my implied involvement video, link should be up above, then you'll understand how this overlaps in other people's realities, aka the brain of God, and how all these things connect. I can't make enough diagrams on the whiteboard because there's too much. I'm probably going to put all of that into a premium tier course in the near future, because I have way too much that I could ever even begin to present on a single video. It'd be like 5 hours long at least. So I'm going to produce a program in the future, sometime hopefully soon, and you guys will be able to get in on that, and you'll be able to learn all of the details from top to bottom. I'm going to be providing this in the near future. I promise you guys, I'm doing the work. I'm working on it daily. I'm doing the study. I'm doing the work to figure out how all of this connects, right? So when we're talking about seeds, currents, right? It's the etheric substrate. This is the body of God. When Goddard talks about seed time, it's like a point that contains within it all of the branching pieces that overlap and interact with everything else that will involve us acting in the world, involving in other people's realities, the way that we respond to the world, the way we carry ourselves, all of that stuff, right? That is all a movement of current. It comes from that seed and it unfolds like a branching series of pathways. That's what I call a pathway cascade. So if you watch my original videos from back in the day, I talked about the whole house of cards thing, right? Well, the house of cards thing is very simply the same idea. It's that there is a single point source that unfolds, literally unfolds the elemental pieces that comprise how you and the world responds to your consciousness experiencing that state, right? So when God only acts, it's, again, the interactions of all these different pieces. All of manifestation relies on this principle being correct. This principle up here about etheric substrate, the etheric substrate moving everyone. That's the body of God. This is really how all of this manifestation stuff works. It doesn't work through thinking thought. He himself said, not all thoughts manifest. He said this himself. He said it's only the thoughts that you have feeling towards. In other words, the reality of experience towards. In other words, current moving through you that relates to it, right? This is what he said. He literally said that. Again, putting all the quotes on screen, I'm going to save that for the program. But they are out there. If you want to do the study, the quotes are on my website. I have a Neville Goddard quotes link on my site. You can go and study these terms. They're there, right? They are all there. You can go and read them. They're referenced, they're sourced. You can go and copy the lecture name and the part of it, and you can go and read them on other sites, and it's the same thing, right? All the study is there. It's all proven. It's all correct. I've done the homework, guys. It's all there. Neville Goddard said, not all thoughts manifest. He said this. He also said you don't need to be in the state. As in, like, okay, when we're talking about in it, it's like in the sensory depth where you're gone into that place. Because in that quote that I put in that post that I put up a little while ago, he said he comes back to his body after the 10 to 15 seconds when he was imagining. He comes back to his body. What does this mean? It means that he has another body, another imaginal body, the etheric substrate that he's basically embodying as, right? He becomes as one with God, and he lives as the subconscious mind itself. Subconscious impression is a movement of current as the other body of God. I've discussed this. You have different bodies. He also talked about astral projection in one of his other lectures as well. He talked about astral projection as he saw the silver cord when he was looking down on himself. This was from the lecture called, I believe, no, it wasn't the fundamentals. It was one from 1951, I believe, or something like that. It was kind of early on in this talk. And he was discussing how he was contemplating on a higher state, and then he ended up leaving the body, and then he ended up seeing himself on the bed with the silver cord, clearly pointing to astral projection, right? Which was a teaching of Blavatsky from those days. That's where he got it from, theosophy. But my point is that he taught that we have other bodies. Obviously, if you decode his work properly, you'll see it there. It's there. It's not my opinion. It's right there in his fact. And again, once again, he even said, God predetermines the way that we are born and the way that we are going to die. The circumstances themselves, he said, the exact circumstances are predetermined. He said this. He said, this is what the Bible teaches. He said, manifestation is to cushion the blows of life. This is what he taught. So how do we make sense of all of this stuff? How do we make sense of the seeds unfolding into these capacities? All of this stuff, how do we make sense of it all? How do we practically apply getting out of the box and learning the lessons that he talks about? Very simple. I will tell you right now. You have to listen very carefully to what I'm going to tell you, because it's probably not what you expect, but it's going to free you and allow you to live the life you want. Because the world out there is designed to destroy us. It is. This is what Goddard said. Neville Goddard said, the flood is upon us right now. The facts of the world are the flood. We are in the flood. This is what he said. I can quote him saying that at least 3 different times. He has said this many times before. The flood is the world. The facts of life as well that correspond to what we're experiencing. It's not just psychologically, the facts of life, but literally the world around us that's trying to condition us, trying to keep us in the box, right? Neville Goddard talked about us being put through hell in order to basically, the fiery furnaces of hell, in order to transform who we are, to learn the lessons that we need to learn for the work yet to be done in him. Do we understand the point? The point is expansion, individuation. He said the point of all of this work, I can quote him saying this at least, 23 times I believe he said this. The whole point of this is individualization. That's what he said directly. Individualization. That is what all of this is about. It's not about getting things. He talked about this. You will contemplate on a far more noble state. That's what he said after talking about manifesting material things in the world. This is the whole point of all of this manifestation stuff. The real essence of it is willing participation in expansion. Being yourself without compromise. And as a result, as a consequence, what you really desire will automatically unfold through you because it's part of your expansion in itself. Do you understand? Living in a higher consciousness automatically necessitates that all of the things that are necessary for you to experience that state must come through you and manifest in your reality. Because you're going to respond in a different way that's actually nourishing yourself, loving yourself, being real to who you are. Being yourself without mercy, without compromise, without any of these strings attached. You don't condition the responses that you have according to other people's expectations. So from the first day Goddard stepped out and started to publish his material, it was all about expansion. So even the first radio lectures that he did, he talked about this whole individualization idea back in the 50s. He talked about this before the promise, guys. It's a part of his work. It's not just the so-called law. The law obviously is whoever you assume yourself to be, whatever you believe to be true, aka whatever it's state that you're experiencing. Remember, what you believe to be true is your reaction. Your reaction is seed time. Reactions that are seed times are activating the innate currents. They move current, they basically, because the seed contains the state within it, which is what Goddard, he basically considered them to be the same thing. They were both like eggs. Therefore, if you're reacting, you are planting a seed, you are in the state. You are believing it to be true. You are living that state. Therefore, you manifest what that state necessitates for you to experience. Therefore, persistence is about continually responding to life in a way that favors what you want. And that doesn't just mean exclusively imagining. It can be any way. It doesn't have to be imagining. It can be physically acting in the world, as I said before in the beginning. Physically making decisions that are nourishing will provide you a sense of nourishment. It will provide you a sense of satisfaction. Those experiences will auto-suggest to you, oh, I can be myself. They will. So it's not just about imaginal experiences in your mind. It's way more than that. And so everybody who's teaching manifesting as just an imaginal experience thing misses the mechanics of operation. It is about responses that unfold the capacities of seed time into states that we experience. And I've proven that, irrefutably proven that. That's what Goddard taught. It was always about how we respond to the world. The decisions that you make from top to bottom. That's what you believe to be true, because your behavior will reflect how you inwardly feel. Don't look at what people say, look at what they do, because that's the real determination of character. The real character they play, the role they play, the state that they're in, right? States are degrees of expression of self-love, self-respect. So how do you respect yourself? Getting back to my point, how do you respect yourself for real and actually expand? Well, you become unrecognizable to the conditions that bind you to the trash. Neville Goddard said the whole thing about this is about dying to the old self. That's what the whole crucifixion story is about. You know, microcosmically speaking, about state transference, not the whole awakening process, right? So this is what Goddard was really discussing. Dying to your old self is letting go of who you were and allowing yourself to accept who you really are. Allowing yourself to accept more of your innate nature. That is what he taught. That is what all of this manifestation stuff is about. It's about letting go of who you were to move forward into becoming more functional as yourself. It's all about letting go. And I said in a video way back, all imaginal experiences, all such scenes, all of that stuff is about letting go. People don't like that, they dislike it. I don't care, you're wrong. The fact is, Neville Goddard taught us to let go of our trash. All of it was about letting go of who we were. So that we can, this is what he said, to embody a higher ideal of who you are, right? A higher ideal of yourself. That's what he said. All of this is to embody a higher ideal of yourself. He said in the Power of Awareness, like a whole chapter on if only you would, see yourself in a higher ideal. If only you could see yourself in a higher state of self, right? This is all about seeing yourself beyond your limits. And where are your limits? The limits are the limits that the world imposed on you. It's not your limits, your biology. It will adapt to who you're being. It can transform, it can change, it can expand, it can do all of these crazy things if you put yourself under pressure and do that expansion, involve yourself in living that life and suggest to yourself that this is who I am. On loop, make a habit of it. He talked about making a habit of entering the state. He said when entering the state becomes a habit, you believe it. You will believe it. So it's not just about stimulating yourself against all of the odds of the world. I know that's what God had said. Oh, you ignore the facts of the world, right? But again, functionally changing how you see yourself almost invariably will involve you making decisions in the world that will reflect to you that this is who you are. It's not just exclusively an inner imaginal thing. You keep looping imaginal scenes in your mind. Almost nobody can do that. Very, very few people can make that work for them, right? That's not to say it's impossible, because if it is truly mental, which I still don't believe that it is, because God didn't really say that it was, because things are predetermined in us, therefore it's not all what we believe that manifests to us, right? Right? He said that it's predetermined, so it doesn't matter what we believe. It'll happen to us anyway, right? That's what he taught. That's what he said. So therefore, it's not whatever you believe to be true is what happens to you. That's within a specific container. That it's not all-encompassing. It's correct. That is true, but within a certain category of expansion that we can experience. It doesn't go from bottom to top. There is a threshold at which we can play with this so-called law, right? It's not complete. That's why calling it the law is very, in my opinion, disingenuous, but that's what the biblical language was that he was copying. So being real with yourself is how you expand and break out of your limits. Being real with who you really are is the whole goal of this work. It always was, and really always will be. So again, look at the limits that you're conforming yourself to, the expectations of the world, and be willing to cut out the trash, be willing to cut out the conformity to these conditions, and be willing to be seen in a light that they might not respect you for, right? You have to be willing to cut out the need for their approval. You have to be willing to respect who your inner truth is driving you to express yourself as. And if that means losing respect of certain people in your familial circles or friend circles or whatever the heck, so be it. So be it. You cannot do the work, you cannot complete the expansion without learning the lessons. Goddard said that. He said, we go through hell until we learn the lesson. That's what he said. Suffering is going through hell, going through the fiery furnaces. So if you want to learn the lesson, you need to learn to respect yourself and make the decisions that put you in the place that suggest you're in the state you want to be in. That's the fulfillment of the desire. God had said we're given these desires for expansion. That's what he said. We are put under pressure by God because desire is a pressure to experience something. We are put under pressure to experience expansion for the purposes of the work yet to be done in him. Therefore, you will inevitably continue to repeat these experiences because the lesson needs to be learned. It's not just exclusively about belief stuff. How did you even come into experiencing this lack belief in the first place? Someone basically projected their conditioning onto you. This is the reality of what happens. It's generational trauma. Other people's expectations, they come onto us. Their expectations are projected onto us, and we internalize it. Oh, this is who I am. I have to conform to this expectation. I have to be a good boy and fit in with the expectations, and I'll be rewarded. No, you won't. You're going to suffer. Your life is going to suck until you realize that you actually are designed to move above those expectations and be willing to be seen by those people in the light that they don't want you to be seen in, to individualize yourself, which is again what the point of what Goddard was saying. He said it was to individualize yourself, which is to take what is base into what is higher. And he said without a loss of identity. Literally, it's taking a base element of being, the lead, and turning it into gold. That's what alchemy is about, right? So all of the alchemists, basically all of the alchemical traditions throughout history for thousands of years were teaching. All of it. That's what all of this is about. Everything is about expansion of being more of yourself, being more true to who you are, and accepting that completely, uncompromisingly. So until we can accept that truly, remember the state is the feeling is the acceptance that the wish has been fulfilled, which is a fulfilling of our desire. That doesn't mean it'll feel positive. The emotional feeling can be anything. It can be positive, negative. I manifested positive things, big positive things, in my life while I felt fury. I've talked about my SP manifestation story, right? I felt fury. I've linked it up above, right? I felt fury towards the people who conditioned me, and that broke me free from conforming to their expectations, and I felt the feeling of relief. Oh, I can be this person. I can actually have what I want. I don't have to be this way. I let go. That's how you heal yourself from diseases and all this stuff, right? You are dropping the confirmation, the need to bind yourself to expectations of other people that have projected onto you lack. And therefore, because you're conforming to their expectations, you're denying the pressure that's coming through you to be yourself. And therefore it builds up, the pressure builds up stagnation, chi stagnation in the meridian systems, right? That manifests disease. I can explain healings without needing mentalism and solipsism. TCM has all the answers. You can explain miracle healings. You can explain thought transmission. Thought transmission is very real. I've had many client stories. I've had experiences myself. There are so many examples of obvious thought transmission being a thing, right? Because we live in the brain of God, the brain cells that are all communicating together, right? This is what God had said, literally. This is what he taught. Again, it's all there. Go and search his lectures. You'll find it there, right? This is what he taught. He taught that all of this manifestation stuff to make money, houses, cars, all that fancy stuff, right? The stuff of the world of Caesar is to cushion the blows of life for the work yet to be done in him. It's all about expansion of being yourself. That's how manifestation really unfolds. But to get specific things in the world, which is what most of you came here for, which is just another cope for the fact that your life still sucks, You're trying to feel positive towards having something when your life actually sucks and you're stuck in conforming to their expectations. You know why you're unsatisfied? You want to know why your life sucks? It's because you're still cowardly and you can't own the fact that you don't want to be the way they want you to be. You can't own the fact that you really want to become unrecognizable to who they expect you to be. But you can't own it. You can't go all the way. You go to a certain level, but you don't make the full step and go all the way. You can't do it. So until you go all the way, you're going to keep repeating, looping the same lesson until you figure it out. This is why I tell people to go all the way. Cut through the conditioning. Be real. How do you actually feel? Right? How do you actually feel? Let go of the expectation to be the way they expect you to be. And own who you really want to be in this world. Completely. And be totally unrecognizable. The more that you change in one go, the more reality will respond. The more that you change in a spontaneous manner, the more reality will shift around you. And that's what I'm really involved in when I do coaching with people. It's like radical transformation as fast as possible. Real radical transformation in life. Elevating the sense of self, the state that they live in by default, that they return to as a habit. Involving themselves in living the life that they want for real and being willing to go to any lengths to make that happen. This is what brazen impudence is really about. Not accepting no for an answer. That's what he discussed, right? You don't take no for an answer. You do anything you can. It doesn't have to be just in your mind. Stop trying to live in your damn head. It's not helping you. It's making things worse because you're living in pseudo-satisfaction. You're living in pseudo-satisfaction. You stimulate yourself in your mind. You release your dopamine. You get all high on, and then you crash down and you got no motivation, and then you conform to the expectations. Start to build some pressure and make meaningful decisions in the world that will nourish who you're being. And you will automatically, and I guarantee you, I bet you 100%, you will start to think more positively of yourself by default, by starting to nourish yourself and move along the track in a meaningful way. Making decisions that are actually functional, that are actually self-loving for real, instead of just pretending to do it in your mind exclusively. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't or ever do imaginal work. It has function, it has purpose. But in the vast majority of people's cases, especially if you're watching this video and you're trying to manifest a specific person, a sum of money or any of this stuff, right? You're doing it from a place of cope. You're not doing it because you really want to transform. You're doing it because you're trying to fit this thing into the compromised life. And you know that. The reality is that you're trying to basically live in two realities at once. I want to appease my expectations, but I also want this thing. So you're not willing to really transform and become unrecognizable. A completely unrecognizable person as to who you are now. You keep trying to compromise and stay in the box and have the thing come to you. Oh, if this is what's being taught. All I need to do is just, imagine the thing more vividly. I did all that work, guys. I did that work for years, and my life sucked. It made it worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And most people who come through my coaching, they tell me the same thing. They do vivid imaginal scenes, and then their lives get way worse. Everything starts to fall apart. Why? Because they're not acting on what they really want in life. They're not making meaningful decisions that are nourishing. They're constantly seeking their imaginal senses as the validation. And again, the imaginal senses are not God. The current is God. The imaginal senses move the current. The imaginal senses are the eyes of the subconscious mind, which is the etheric body, which is what I talked about before. Goddard saw himself on the bed. He was looking through the eyes of his etheric body. It's the same thing. Your imaginal eyes, you can project them. You're projecting your etheric body around the room. In fact, Neville Goddard talked about gazing as well. He used to do gazing with Abdullah. He used to do gazing. He'd project himself into different places really quickly. He'd look behind himself. He did all kinds of stuff. He talked about bilocation even. Bilocation. He talked about bilocation. He could project himself into different places and people would see him there. They're seeing his etheric level form, right? So please get a clue. This is not just imaginal senses. The imaginal senses are there to elicit the sensation of the reality of experience, to evoke the feeling, which creates seed time, because it's a response. He said a reaction activates seed time, and seed time is what will harvest the results of the seed. Listen carefully before you put comments in my comment section saying I'm making stuff up again. Listen very carefully. Seed time is what yields the harvest. Seed time and harvest. Manifesting is responding to life. The reaction is the response, the reaction. You are imagining something to elicit the feeling, the reaction. Okay? This is what he said. You are imagining to elicit the reaction. That's what the feeling is. That's what he talked about. The emotional sensation. It's a motor response. Connect the dots. So, imaginal senses themselves don't manifest the details. They can't. But the details are still contained within the seed because it's within the experience that you're having in that place. Not because the imaginal sensory details will manifest in the exact likeness that you had, because that's not true. Everybody experiences variations on that stuff. We know this, right? But the reality of the experience of what that implies about you will manifest. That's what will manifest, because that's what the response means. That is seed time. And therefore, seed time will reach a harvest, which is the manifestation. Therefore, responses in the world, provably by what God had taught, responses to the world are what manifest from the seeds unfolding into the harvest that we experience in the world. Therefore, the feeling is what matters. This is why Neville Goddard said the feeling is the secret. Proven irrefutably. So stop trying to throw thoughts in your head, because all you're going to get is signs. And you know that, right? The real reason why you keep getting signs, opposite results, is because you're continuing to compromise. Live in the damn box. And listen to these fools in this space who keep telling you to live in your head. You're wasting your time. So stop trying to imagine and start to involve yourself in making decisions in your life that nourish who you are, that provide you a meaningful sense of value. So that is how you will begin to really meaningfully experience transforming thoughts in your mind by default. You will have those thoughts of positivity about who you are come through you by default. And you won't have to try. It will happen automatically. And I can prove that every single time that I've done these experiments, and I actually expand my limits in the world under pressure, and I imagine scenes of limitation that I'm facing, and I go into the pressure and I experience, I'm going to let go of this thing and prove to myself that I can have what I want, and I release. I can have myself. I can be myself. I can actually be who I want to be for real. I don't have to conform to their expectations. So feeling is the secret, is a movement of mind, a movement of God, a movement of the etheric substrate. So back to my point. A movement of the etheric substrate is a movement of vital illuminating current. Vitality is literally what illuminates the world. Vital nourishing current of God. God is the etheric substrate in motion, which is what energy is. The perturbance of the etheric substrate, which is the body of God, which is what, by the way, ancient physicists and metaphysicians, for example, in what people like Nikola Tesla worked with. Nikola Tesla made fun of quantum physicists because it's a load of garbage. Quantum mechanics is a stupid, brain-dead science, and everybody who preaches that stuff has no clue about real metaphysics, real alchemy, real physics that's been proven way before the quantum model came into reality. This probabilistic thing is contradicting by nature. It's so dumb, and people who preach this stuff have no idea. They've never studied a scientific journal in their life, and they've never actually gone back in history and studied what was worked with in the past, and what actually built our entire world. All of the foundational theory that built our entire electrical system was founded on what came before quantum mechanics and relativity. What created our basically entire modern world as the foundational theory was not what's preached today. Most people don't know that. Certain small hats are involved in that. I'm not going to get into that, but there's factions involved in that stuff. Again, Neville Goddard called politicians liars, knowing liars. And if they're playing roles of such nature, that means other people are also playing such devious roles as well. He said this. It's not what I'm saying. This is coming out of his own mouth. He said they are playing the role. He didn't try and change the role. He accepted this is what's happening. This is what's for the play to play out. They're playing the part. Do you understand? It's a part of the experience of reality, just like your death is predetermined. This is what he taught. Right? So quantum mechanics is a joke. It's contradicting by nature. Probabilistic. Can be this, can be this, can be this, can be this. All these different things all at the same time. It's a complete load of garbage because they don't know how to interpret the phenomena of what's happening correctly. They don't understand wave mechanics. If you understand wave mechanics, you'll understand everything else. That's how it all works. It's all waves. It's all perturbances of the etheric substrate of God. This is what's really being taught. Manifestation is not about any of the stuff that any of these people in this space are talking about. None of it. Reality synthesis is the only correct model of manifestation. And I say that by having spent more than a decade studying these things for 10 to 12 hours every day, basically non-stop for years. It's all I ever did. It's what I involved myself in every single day to figure out the truth of this stuff. Because my life sucked and I needed answers. Because what they told me to do didn't work. It only made things worse and worse and worse. And so I needed to dig deep. And that's why I came up with reality synthesis. Because we need an answer. And these people need to get schooled with what the reality of how things really work is, using the words of Goddard himself and many other models that I've connected, like for example TCM, to explain the meridian system stuff, right? So once again, embodying the state of the wish fulfilled is being in the seed. It's the seed unfolding, right? It's the same thing. There's no difference. They are the same thing. States and seeds here both akin to eggs, which are the feminine aspect. Yin. Yin is substantive. It's containing capacity, genetic capacity, to unfold into something that is expansive and manifest in the world. This is what he said. If you look at the mechanics, it's there. We need to go through a metaphysical death. We need to die to who we are. We need to leave behind who we are. Completely move forward with who we are. Leave behind our old self and move on and be involved in living the life we really want. That is how you most efficiently, most quickly, and effortlessly, because remember, being yourself is effortless. Being yourself is effortless because you don't need to put up a mask. You don't need to fake who you are. You don't need to try and gaslight yourself out of how you really feel. You just uncompromisingly be yourself for real, and you don't compromise to keep them happy. You be real with who you are, and that's how you make progress. You involve yourself in living the life, the ideal that you have for yourself, as Goddard called it, and you be uncompromising about it. And you be willing to step on people's toes. Because guess what? What they need is you stepping on their toes for them to see their own conditioning, right? That is how you're going to transform them into a higher state by default. You can imagine them then being in a higher state because you're satisfied in your place. You can then overflow the love that you have within you, right? Stimulation is love, which, by the way, manifesting specific people is all about someone will want you because you're stimulating their thematic supply-demand process, right? Manifesting specific people is all about I'm giving them something that illuminates them, basically, right? It illuminates their affinities to receive whatever current that we're providing them. So whatever it is that they're looking for, we will provide that to them, and they will then provide love for us. But love is always a stimulation of the Shen. Always. All love is based on stimulation of the Shen. The currents move through your circuits. It lifts up the Shen. True unconditional love isn't really a thing in this world. Pretty much nobody can give that. Pretty much nobody can provide you unconditional love, because it's basically not really a thing that anyone can provide, because even Carl Jung said, basically everybody is living in this pseudo-satisfaction. I need to project myself onto someone else, and if they're able to receive that, to work through their own, conditioning and stuff like that, then the relationships play out. That's why you end up with the people you end up with. You end up with the people that you do in the first place because they're playing the role of thematic supply-demand. You're both playing off of each other's conditioning. That's what's really going on. It's not really about love, it's about stimulation. Always about illumination. Do you understand? Right? It's all about illumination. Everything. Illumination is the whole function of your existence. Once again, Goddard said we are placed into the play by preset, determined experiences. You're born and you die with specific details, specific circumstances according to God's will. That's what he said. According to the play, which is, once again, God's grand stage that he's playing out through all of us. Which you basically say is God's will, effectively, right? Attraction, right? Attraction is stimulation. Attraction is love. Attraction is simply, like if you're trying to manifest an SP to come to you, being yourself for real and provide, this is the thing. If you actually accept who you are, you're going to be more nourished by God. You're going to be more nourished by starlight. You're going to become more of your archetypal capacity. You're going to unfold your seeds, your state, your ideal state, right? This is my point. Manifesting specific people is becoming more of yourself. Always was, always is, always will be. Which is why people, when they actually let go of their garbage and they allow themselves to expand into who they really are, then they start to have people show up. This is how I had my SP manifest. I had my SP manifest only because I let go of my trash. That's it. That's all it was. That's it. That's really all I did. All I experienced was I basically allowed myself to drop the conditioning of needing to conform to certain expectations of familial figures, societal expectations, all that stuff. I just dropped it. I'm like, no, I'm going to be who I want to be. Stuff you. I'm going to be who I want to be right now for real. And I felt the reality of that experience, and that was seed time. And therefore, I could leave it and it unfolded. So since I already unfolded the currents because I felt the feeling of the wish fulfilled, right? It came through me. It was automatic. I didn't need to persist willingly because I was already in the habit of being that person. I accepted, I went all the way, and I unfolded it, right? That was what worked for me. So again, attraction and stimulation is love. Unconditional love goes beyond that, but love that we're trying to manifest in the world, more or less, is I'm looking for this person to stimulate something within me that I want from them. It's always been this way. That's just the way that it is. Manifesting SPs relies on your vitality being strong enough for them to feel that from you. That's how sparks work. Literally, sparks of love and stimulation, it all works through vitality exchange. If your vitality or your nourishing current, the amount of God that can come through you because you're accepting who you are, which is how you basically, nourish yourself properly, you're being yourself for real. Love, stimulation, God force, illuminating starlight, all of that comes through you and it illuminates who you are, and they will feel that, and they will feel your attraction. They will feel your God force, literally. And since you're more connected to the totality of who you are in the brain of God, the brain cells, you'll have more of a connection to the reality of experience of all of these different things. It'll work for you. So again, people continue to ask me, over and over and over and over and over. DJ, simplify manifestation. I'm like, damn it, do you not listen to my freaking talks? Listen carefully. Being yourself, breaking the conditions, being real, and actually expanding into who you want to be, seeing yourself in the higher ideal and continuing to return to that and acting on that for real, because you will need to act on that if you really want to embody it. Let's be real. Let's stop coping. Let's stop coping. Let's be real. If you want to embody your ideal, you're going to need to change who you're being in the world. If you start to do that, you'll feel better about yourself and you'll start to naturally feel better. You'll start to think better thoughts. You'll start to involve yourself in things that are actually nourishing. People will respond to you differently. You will manifest new people, old people will leave. It's all about expansion. And the thoughts that drive that, they will elicit the feelings of this is who I am. Auto-suggestion. We've already proven it's not the thought, right? According to what Goddard says at least, although I've manifested things even with fleeting thoughts. But oftentimes I look back on what I did, and it was almost always because I was involved in something that was nourishing and satisfying to me. I was in a state streak that was nourishing to who I was. I talked about this on my last video. Implied involvement state streaks by living the reality of experience of I'm living my higher ideal right now. That seems to be the catalyst to unfold how these fleeting thoughts can have this power. But that's because they're integrated within a state streak, a nourishing state streak that you're involved in because you're being more of yourself, being more authentic. Those thoughts seem to have the power, even if they don't have feeling behind them. Just like that kid who manifested the free money at the bank. He said, oh, wouldn't it be wonderful if this or that, if I got free money and they made a mistake and I got free money. It happened. Probably because he was involved in something that he wanted to be involved in. And that was an effect of who he was being. He was already in the state, really, for the most part. And that was just an expansion that took it to the next level. And please do remember, I talked about in my corporeal, incorporeal identification video, that it's like taking steps, right? Your state gradually elevates as you expand yourself. Piece by piece by piece. You involve yourself in making decisions. Your biology expands, it grows, it adapts. The fact that our biology can grow and adapt to who we see ourselves and who we're involving ourselves to be for real is only, in my opinion, proof of the so-called law being correct. Like, that is a direct manifestation of who you see yourself thematically manifesting in how your body builds itself. Literally. Like, this is how miracle healings and stuff work. You let go of the garbage, the chi in the meridians can move. And guess what? The currents then can flow through your circuits and manifest as the biological adaptation to how you now see yourself on a thematic level. The thematic composition defines who you're being. So therefore, the thematic level of who you're basically, your archetypal expression of who you are in the world is being, will be probably reflected on your biology, on your physiology. Right? So this is how we really manifest being a higher version of ourselves. Physically, your little structure will change to support that. Invariably. It will. It has to. Because your body is a reflection of who you're being on a metaphysical level. The thematic components must reflect in your biology. This has been proven infinitely through every single experiment ever done on any kind of exercise physiology. And by the way, people who imagine themselves, who are doing physical activity beforehand, will only get better results. Why? Because they're seeing themselves in that place and they're priming their body for adaptation. Really, right? The nerve cells and stuff like that fire. It's basically a suggestion, but you still need to do the work to expand. If you don't involve yourself in actually breaking down, putting your body under pressure, it doesn't expand. Like, show me a single world-class, lifter, for example. Show me a single one. Any sport, any champion. Show me one of them who lives around and does nothing. They sit on the couch and they do nothing, and yet they go, oh, I'm going to perform. Oh, I perform top level. I'm the world champion now. Like, they train day in, day out. And yes, I know some top tier athletes, they train less, but they still do have past experience in continually involving themselves physically in playing that role. Then they just see themselves in that place. What matters for adaptation really is continuing to push the limits of how you see yourself in that ideal, continuing to elevate yourself, and then involving yourself in experiences that confirm that this is who you are. So almost invariably, to push your biological limits to adapt your body to who you see yourself as, you have to physically involve yourself in something that will put it under pressure to expand it. So if this law is true for our biology, in every account ever recorded ever, apart from some kind of, genetic anomaly where someone's like, their hormones get whacked or something like that and they grow crazy when, that's just kind of like one of those outliers. Just like people who are diseased and decrepit. There's always outliers. People are born into different states. My point is that whenever someone is deliberately working the mechanism is proven and reliable. Anyone who sees themselves in that place and physically works on themselves in that way, physically, right, they will grow that They will grow to that person they see themselves to be. They will. It invariably happens every time. But it's up to you to push yourself into seeing yourself in that way. But it's really an acceptance of who you want to be. It's an acceptance of who you are. It's not about pushing anything. We're not putting in effort. We're not pushing limits. We're just accepting who we really are, right? That's what's really going on. We're accepting who we really are at our core, our capacity. And so then by involving yourself, the biology must adapt. Biological adaptation proves the law pretty much, because it's true in every single instance ever. But it also necessitates and pretty much clearly demonstrates that physical growth requires physical pressure being applied. You have to break down the body for it to grow stronger. This is every single exercise physiology law ever discovered ever. Pressure put on the biology expands it. Pressure put on the mind expands the mind. This is why we exist. It's a conjugate reflection. Do you understand what I'm talking about? This is why Goddard said we are put through the hellfire furnaces of reality to expand ourselves, to learn the lessons. This is what's really going on. This is the reality behind manifestation and how we automatically suggest to ourselves who we are and thus manifest from that state. So instead of trying to use your imaginal senses to try and hack this stuff, which again, Neville Goddard said, the point of SATs is so that they will then think positively from, basically in the following days to persist in that state. It was never always proven to be a one and done thing. Because if it was always just a one and done imaginal scene, which I, by the way, I can support that for the most part, it should be a one and done scene if you do it. But that depends upon if you're in that position of, allowing your momentum to drive you, right? If you're not there, good luck getting magical results. Good luck, have fun. But he taught that the whole point of the imaginal scene at night, the SAT stuff, right? It was basically to elicit movement during the next day and the day after, so that you will want to return to that state, make a habit of it. Why would he teach persistence if it's about doing it once? Like, if it was about the technique, which he said the technique has no power whatsoever, then why would he teach persistence and making a habit of returning to the state? Which again is implied involvement, because it's auto-suggesting who you're being. We've proven this, right? So if he teaches this seeming contradicting doctrine, which one has the power? Well, they both work the mechanism. Because seed time, without digging up the seed, which he also talked about digging up seeds, you can dig up seeds with fear. He talked about if you have fear, you're going to dig up the seed, right? So it's about being comfortable with being that person. This is what he said in his lecture about, I can't remember which one it was, but I know it's there. I've quoted it. If I'm lucky, I'll find it and put it on the screen for you. But if you search through my site, it's there. I quoted it. He talked about fear and digging up the seed, right? And there was also, by the way, I remember this. There was a lecture called a creative moment, I think it was, right? And there was this testimony from one of his audience, one of the guys in his audience. His name was David or something like that. And he was saying that when he felt fear during his day-to-day, when he was persisting in the state of returning to that position, right? Whenever he felt fear, he returns to, this is what he told the audience and told Neville. He said, I just returned to the realization that I am actually God and I'm the power who's above all of this stuff. All of this is about dispelling fear and accepting who you are. It's not magical mind tricks, really. Yes, the phenomena of the magic working is very real, but the mechanics is not solipsistic mind magic of bending reality to your will and some kind of probabilistic reality timeline shifting stuff. And all these fools, these ill-educated fools who've never read anything that I'm discussing, who haven't been through even a fraction of a percentage of the data that my pinky finger's been through on the subject, love to come under my comments and say, DJ, this is not what Neville Goddard taught. This is not Neville Goddard. How many freaking lectures have you read? I've read every lecture, I've read every quote, I've literally I've created my own study material to search through key words in his lectures to find these things. I have put together over the course of weeks, I put hundreds of hours into coding my own database with his own work so that I can make the study easier. I've done that work. I've got the receipts to prove it, guys. It's on the site. Go and read it. My point is that God didn't teach what we're being told. And not at all. And nobody's got the guts to stand up and say things for what they are. Because it's not profitable. Because it's not, all you have to do is just imagine the scene at night. And it keeps people stuck in the box because they're not actually doing the work. Do you know why people keep coming back, to the industry? Multi-billion-dollar industries don't sell people results. They sell people a promise, a hope for them to keep coming back for more. They sell hopium, copium. They don't actually address the problem. They create lifelong customers. I'm not interested in that trash. I'm interested in actually expanding people. So to actually expand yourself, you see yourself in your ideal and you involve yourself and you go all the way. You truly involve yourself in whatever means that you have available to you to apply the pressure to expand yourself. And yes, I know, Neville Goddard talked about stories where nobody was, seemingly involving themselves, at least from what he discussed, in doing the things that I'm talking about. Like for example, that time where someone had, a house or a business or something like that. It was bought for that guy because he kept on seeing his name on the building or something like that. I can't remember the details. It might have even been someone in his family, but the story was that this guy kept seeing his name on the building, and that's all he did. Well, I can almost guarantee that guy was fixated on that vision, and whatever he was driven to involve himself in was necessary for that expansion. My point is that he felt within himself comfortable with being in that role. Whatever involvement he put himself in was necessary to unfold that capacity. That's my point. Whatever it is, it doesn't have to be massive or small. It doesn't have to be anything more than what is driven by intuitive impulse, driven by natural striving, driven by your inner truth. How you really feel is what will drive you towards your success. That's what matters the most. What matters the most is always being real with how you feel, right? And looking, who am I serving in life? Am I serving God, my inner truth, or am I serving other people's expectations? And if you try and change other people's expectations while still continuing to compromise and stay small and having your life stuck with all these barriers and compromise patterns that don't work for you, don't work, but you keep compromising and living in that box, you're not going to change that person. I can guarantee you. But when you actually begin to make the change, you will then notice those people will begin to change as well, if they do. That's what I've observed. That's what most people who I've talked to have observed. It almost always comes off the back of some kind of willing expansion. That's what I'm talking about. That's what Goddard even discussed himself. It's there in his lectures. It's there. So unless we can make sense of these seeming contradictions, which I've already done, then the people who teach mentalism, solipsism, they need to get lost. They need to get schooled. They need to get cut down to the ground and schooled like never before. Because what they're doing is creating customers for life. I'm not interested in that. I want to give you guys the tools to really radically transform how you live and how you apply manifestation. Because manifestation is not what we've been taught. Not even close. And I'm not interested in having people, come back for life as customers. I want you to really get places. I want you to really expand yourself. I want you to really start to involve yourself in living a life of deep satisfaction. Because that's what we're here for, really. We're not here to play games. We're not here to beat around the bush. We're here to be real, brutally real, honest with ourselves, because that's how we transform who we are. We go through the fiery furnaces of this life. We learn the lessons, we cut through the trash, and we expand. That's why we're here, guys. We're not here to indulge in temporary pseudo-satisfaction and stimulation that's needless. We're here to be real with who we are within ourselves and to unfold those capacities that are within us. That's what God had really taught. Anyway, guys, I hope you understood what I'm really teaching here. I know it's different. I know it's probably confronting to a lot of you, but it's the truth. And it's the reality of what God had taught. And it's the reality about what manifestation is really involved with. These people continue to lie to you, continue to play games, continue to beat around the bush, continue to pretend as though it's all just in the mind, right? It's all just in the head. It's all just thinking positively thoughts. No, absolute nonsense. God himself said and proved the mechanism of seed time is how manifestation works. Order, then wait. Seed time, reaction, response. That's why the feeling is elicited through using the imaginal senses. Remember, people with aphantasia, they don't have imaginal senses, and yet they can still elicit the feeling. Ask these people and they'll still tell you they can elicit feeling. A lot of them just use scripting methodology, for example, right? But they do it in such a way where it elicits accepting who they are. Because you don't need your imaginal senses. You don't need to look through the etheric eyes of your subconscious body. You don't need to do that to manifest. You don't need to. There are endless examples of that happening in your life, right? Endless examples. When you were traumatized as a child and you manifested all the negative stuff that came from that, you didn't imagine that stuff happening. Not at all. Not even close. You did not imagine a vivid scene or really any of that stuff that made that stuff happen. There's endless examples of you even imagining negative stuff happening in your life, and that doesn't even happen. Thematically speaking, it'll probably happen because it's a lesson you need to learn, but my point is that the sensory details don't matter because it's already built into the seed. Whatever is satisfying is already built into the seed. If you accept who you are, satisfying experiences will follow. Invariably. That's the law, right? Whatever you expand yourself into will unfold in your life. And it will be satisfying because that's what expansion is really for, right? So I hope we understand these mechanisms and I hope we understand how this all really applies. Because
anyone just relying on imaginal scenes in a vacuum, they're going to be stuck in the box and they're not going to manifest massive results in life. 95+% of people don't get anywhere with manifesting using imaginal senses. They just don't. Imaginal senses don't matter. It doesn't matter really at all. The only reason that Goddard told you to use all the tones of reality, all the sensory details, was to elicit the feeling. This is what he said. And again, he said he comes back to his body after he imagines, which means he's in the etheric body. He's using the eyes of the etheric body. It's to elicit the sensation of this is who I am. That impregnates the state, activates seed time, unfolds the harvest. That's manifestation. That's what he taught. That is the mechanism that manifests. It's irrefutable, guys. There's more evidence on that than I can even begin to provide in one video. Literally like hundreds of quotes I could list that would demonstrate this to be the case. Hundreds of quotes, at least. So many. So the point of all of this work is to expand who we are, because that's what underlies all of that work. It's what underlies your ability to feel comfortable with being that person. Because whenever I imagined the vivid details of what I wanted that elicited a feeling, it was always discomfort, lack, fear, doubt, insecurity. I can't be this person because of X condition, Y condition. I couldn't let go of it. So imagining the thing, unless it allows you to let go of the thing because you're imagining properly, you're actually expanding who you are envisioning yourself and accepting your ideal, the vision that you see for yourself. Unless your imaginal sensory details correspond to that and can allow that to come through you, then don't expect miracles to happen, because you're probably not going to return to the state. Goddard said you can be put into a state, but that doesn't mean you're going to return to the state. That's what he said. Doesn't mean you'll return to it. But what I've experienced is the harder that you go into, I'm accepting this is who I am, I'm going to become unrecognizable to my conditions. Unrecognizable. The harder that you go into becoming truly unrecognizable and you feel the reality of that, you break free from the conditions, that can be a one and done. That can be a one and done. And what comes out of that is what you desire in response. Therefore, it can be instantaneous. State shifts can be instantaneous, but you have to do it correctly. You have to understand what you're really targeting. If you don't know what you're targeting, you're probably just going to continue to wallow around in the box and not get anywhere. And that's what I do in my coaching. I take people from being in the box, stuck in negative cycles, failing to learn the lessons, and I reveal it to their face and I say, look, this is what you need to play out. This scene will probably elicit the feeling. I did this just the other day. I did it live with someone on a session. I gave them a specific experience. And guess what? They came back and I gave them the what if, the worst case scenarios. I brought them into the worst case fear type scenarios. And guess what? They didn't fear it at all. They felt no fear. They felt empowered. They were like, yeah, this is fine. They went away. They came back to me and said it continued on, because he knew what the feeling was. He knew what the sensation of this is who I am. They actually understood. They don't have to conform to the expectation, which is why they felt the fear. So when I told them to look at the people who did this to them as the problem and to see themselves as expanded beyond that, they no longer felt the fear. It was gone. And this works better than seeing yourself as God, because it's meaningful. It's personal. It's meaningful to who you are. That's why I do the coaching with the method that I do. I don't care if God had told you to see yourself as God. I don't care. I don't care one bit. I know what works. I have a formula and it works every single time. And I've spent years refining it. And it's controversial, but I don't care because I know it works. And nobody else in this space will work with such a methodology, probably, because it's negative, it's seeing other people in bad places. I don't care. It's expanding. It leads you into accepting who you are. It places the conditioning on who projected it onto you. You disown their condition and you accept who you are. All of the conditions that you adopted from other people and you threw yourself away and you gave your power away, you reclaim it. This is who I am. No, this is me. And you reclaim who you are. And your vitality increases. You're illuminating starlight from the etheric substrate, the body of God. You become unrelentingly, mercilessly, uncompromisingly yourself. Nothing holds you back. That's how you become empowered. That's how you can imagine what you want effortlessly. Guys, having the foundation of a rock solid sense of self, living in the vision of who you really want to be in as an ideal, and owning and involving yourself in that life only makes the imaginal work 10,000 times easier for you. And it can be fleeting thoughts that manifest. I've experienced this. I'm telling you guys, stop living in the box. Stop imagining in a vacuum. It's not going to work for you. It's making your life worse. And these fools keep telling you to do it because they want you to keep giving them ad money. They're keeping you in the box. You've got to keep paying for courses. These fools, they'll never tell you the truth. I'm here to tell you the facts about how this really works. Go and look at the data and you'll figure it out for yourself. I spent years decoding these mechanics, going through trial and error experiments with my own experiences in life and figuring out what does and doesn't work. I spent so much time decoding these mechanics, going through hundreds of different systems, writing thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of pages of work, notes that I've culminated over years, exploring every possible variable and isolating individual pieces, figuring out what causes it, what doesn't, reading Goddard excessively, obsessively studying this stuff to a degree that's unmatched. This is my work. This is reality synthesis. Reality synthesis is here to destroy the standard model of the law of assumption, as I said in my videos from years ago. This was always my intention, to take down the standard model of manifestation, because it doesn't work and we all know it. We need to move on, right? Doing imaginal scenes in a vacuum and ignoring every other variable needs to get lost, because it's not reliable and it doesn't work. I never said the phenomenon doesn't exist and that manifestation doesn't work the way that we've been told to any degree, but the way that it's being taught is complete rubbish. And these people obviously don't know what they're doing, because if they knew what works and their success rates would reflect that, they would teach you what I'm telling you, because this obviously works. It has the highest success rate that I've ever come across, and that's why I'm teaching it to you today, because I have the data to back it up. So again, if you want to go through a coach that's legit, that'll get you into places that's actually expanding, actually fulfilling your function, actually fulfilling your purpose here, then I'm here to play that role. I'm here to be that coach. I'm here to be here to facilitate your transformation using my new model of reality called reality synthesis. You'll never hear this anywhere else. This is all unique theory, model, application. All of it's unique to my work. That's why reality synthesis coaching will become the standard in the future, because it works, and that's what matters. And every client that comes through, I hold myself accountable to attaining results for that person, provided they also are willing to go all the way accordingly. So that's what you're in for, guys. More and more and more and more and more hard truth manifestation doctrine from reality synthesis, what Neville Goddard really taught, providing endless examples of what he said to back it up. It's all there. So we're going to take over this space. So once again, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys appreciated this work that I've done, and I hope you guys share this video around within your manifestation circles so that we can begin to ask questions, begin to critically think, begin to analyze what's really going on, begin to be honest with ourselves. And I want to allow the silent majority out there to have a voice, because I know that they're suffering, and I know they want an answer that actually does work. I know they want a real answer, and I'm here to provide that for you. So we're going to continue to repeat this message. We're going to make more and more videos of this stuff. We're going to be relentless, merciless. We're going to provide the competition, and we're going to take this all the way. We're going to be the solution that we wish to see in the world, be the change we wish to see, embody the state that we desire to be, the ideal of our life that we desire to manifest in this world for real, and take it all the way. No compromise, no mercy, uncompromising, relentless application of being ourselves without compromise. That's how we really do things here at Reality Synthesis, and that's why we're above the rest, and they will know it for real. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed. Stay legendary.